Hi, and welcome to, I believe this is episode 10 of the Examined Life. And today what I'm going to talk about is another recent experience that I've had with a narcissist. And this one is a story about a very young one. He's about 16 years old. And he's somebody who comes to where I work. And he, I kind of spotted him as a narcissist, a while ago. But what he did recently was something that, I kind of ended up calling him out on it, but indirectly, and I think he's kind of ticked off at me at this point. But, I don't really care. But I just wanted to tell you a story about them because if it helps you to be able to recognize narcissism in someone, it's through picking up these types of behaviors or attitudes. So the story is about this kid. He's about 16 years old, and he's a senior in high school, and he's well, since I've been there, he comes in. He's been coming there for quite a while. So the staff before me, they knew him. And my supervisor knows what I was talking about. And what happened was one day he comes in. This is kind of some backstory about why I think he's a narcissist. Because it wasn't just one incident. I mean, it was over time that, things kind of revealed themselves to me. And do I think he's a full-blown narcissist? I don't know. But I definitely think that he's in the very early stages of it, into where if there was an intervention to be done, it would be now. And I think that my supervisor as well as his parents are kind of dropping the ball, in that they're not really addressing it. They feed into it. And so I'll give an example. Okay, I have some ideas of how I came to the idea that he is a narcissist. One day, he comes into the center, and he throws himself down into this big overstuffed chair that we have, and he's tapping away on his phone, and he's the only one there, right? He comes early, and because he's homeschooled, and we say, "Oh, hi, how's things going?" And so I was reading some training materials that I had, and he's swinging around, and it's the chair spins, so he's spinning around on the chair, and then he says, "Oh, I quit my job." Now, he was working as a bagger at the grocery store, and he says, "Well, I quit my job. I need to get a new job for the summer," and he doesn't have any work experience at all. So I said, "Well, why did you quit the job?" And he goes, "Well, I had to stand up for 8 hours." He says, "My feet hurt." And I just kind of smiled to myself because I thought that was kind of funny. And it's like, just a little bit of discomfort and I have to quit. And which is a sign, again, it's a sign of a narcissist because they're lazy. A lot of narcissists are just lazy. And, you give them a little bit of hard work and they whine like hell. But anyway, and that's not even hard work. I mean, he's just bagging groceries. And, it was actually pretty good money because a lot of the adults were actually doing it too. But anyway, so he's bagging groceries. He was bagging groceries, but now he quits the job and he says, so we're asking him, "Well, what kind of job do you want to do?" And he goes, "Well, I want to work at the Harley Davidson store." Now, and I was like, well, I told him, now the thing about Harley Davidson stores like those boutique stores and things like that, is that they're very small, and if they're going to hire somebody, they're going to hire somebody with experience to do cashiering, And even if and sometimes they will hire a young person and train them. Sometimes they will. But I'm thinking a store that has a, that has a brand that they're basing their brand on, that they probably wouldn't choose somebody who doesn't have at least a little bit of retail experience. Because it's not just cashiering that matters, it's also customer service. And you have to have the right attitude to do customer service. So anyways, and so it's not just, the reason we asked him, he said, well, why do you want to work for Harley Davidson? He says he wants to get a discount on all the stuff they have, all the apparel. And okay. Well, I mean, I guess that's part of it, right? But it's more like what they can do for him and not what he can do for them, right? Because he doesn't really have any experience at anything. But we tell him, we want to be supportive, so we tell him, okay, well, apply for it, And I didn't take it away from him to not apply, because it's a good experience either way for him to be rejected. And I kind of knew that he would be rejected, so I told him, no, apply for it. But get the most out of the experience of being interviewed, and learning about how to get a job, because that's really all you're going to get out of it. I didn't say it, but seriously, I didn't think he was going to get it because he doesn't have any work experience. But the sense of entitlement that he kind of displayed was he expected to get the job. Okay. I mean, I give him points for, being positive about it, but I don't think he was very realistic in getting, saying that this is what I have to offer. You have to offer something when you do, the interview. But anyways, I told him, well, so he's saying he needs to get a new job because he quit the grocery store job. And, well, I told him, you need to practice, you should try practicing interviewing. And he goes, I don't want to die. And I said, what? He says, I don't want to die. I don't interview. Okay? He doesn't, he's telling me, he's a 16-year-old little punk, and he's telling me I don't interview. Well, well, that's, this is life now. I just wanted you to understand that has a totally delusional, even though I understand he's like a 16-year-old, okay? But those are the steps you have to learn and go through to get, go through life. You're going to have to interview at some point. That's how life works, how you get the job and all that. Now, don't get me wrong. I understand he's a 16-year-old, and actually teenagers in themselves are very narcissistic. Okay, they are. I totally get that. But this guy is a little bit. The reason I say that he's more than just your run-of-the-mill little narcissistic teenager is because of what happened recently. But these were the building blocks in terms of my looking at why I think he was a narcissist. So anyways, my supervisor pulls up a list of jobs that was in the program that he's part of, and he starts reading them off, and he's researching potential jobs for him to apply for. Now, this is the thing. Why are you doing it for him? I wanted to say that to my supervisor. Why are you doing it for him? Why don't you teach him how to do it? He's going to have to learn how to do it anyway. At some point, he's going to have to learn how to get a job on his own. Why don't you teach him instead of standing there reading them off to him? But I didn't say nothing. I should have, but I didn't. But it shows how they're kind of catering to his laziness. But anyways, so and they don't see how they're feeding into it. That's kind of funny. But he's swinging around in the chair, and then finally, and he tells me that he has an interview, and so these are like as I'm kind of like checking off the boxes in my head of his entitlement, his laziness, his kind of delusional expectations that he thinks that they're going to hire him when he has absolutely no experience, the whininess, all of that. These are little things that shape that narcissists do. But anyways, okay, so what happened was he, about 3 weeks ago, I guess it was 3 weeks ago, he comes in and he has a friend with him and his little sister. And he's playing a game, and my coworker, we'll call her Roz. She's playing a game with him, and they had the board. The game is called Settlers of Catan, I believe. And they put the board up on the pool table. And so on the one side, I was standing because I wanted to learn how to play the game. So I was standing in between everybody on one end of the pool table, and his little sister, was sitting on a chair, kind of sitting, because she's only 5 years old, the little sister. And she was leaning onto the table, but she was standing on a chair, because that's how little she was. And her brother was 16, which is, so there's like a 10 or 11 year difference between the two, right? Is standing up next to her. And he's playing the game, and my coworker's on my right side, on the opposite side of the table, and his friend is next to the coworker, across from him. So they're playing, and it doesn't take long though for my coworker to cut him off because you have to have some cards or whatever to be able to build roads. So you're creating a development of some kind, develop villages and towns and cities and things like that. And so she's building a city. She's trying to build a city. So she knows what her strategy is to beat him. So she puts the what do you call that? She puts a road down and she cuts him off, and she knows that the next move she makes is going to cut him off in another direction, and he's going to be out of the game, so that he loses the game rights. And he knows it too. So she puts the road down, and then she starts ribbing him a little bit. And then the little girl, she gets she can sense from him, her brother, that he's getting agitated by her ribbing him and making fun of him a little bit, that he's gonna lose. And so she gets up and she marches over to the other side to my coworker, and she looks at her and she says to me, "You leave my big brother alone." And she puts her little hands on her hips and she's standing up for him, and protecting him. And I'm standing there thinking that, oh, that's kind of cute, she's protecting her big brother. And I didn't exactly make anything of it at the time until later on. Okay? But I just was watching, and that's what she does. And so she says, my big brother can do anything he wants. And I think he was trying to do something in the game, but that she told him that he couldn't do it for whatever reason, or the rules or whatever. But then so she says, but the little girl says to my coworker, he can do anything he wants. And then my coworker says to her, no, he can't do anything he wants. Okay? She's correcting the little girl, which is the right thing to do. Okay? Because there's a perception on here. She picked up something in terms of she's echoing. And it's kind of funny that she's doing this, but she's echoing what she heard from someone else. Probably the brother or maybe one of the parents. Okay? Who is supporting the narcissism. And the fact that she said that was really the clincher for me in terms of that he is a narcissist. Okay, that the little girl is repeating he can do whatever he wants. He's entitled to do whatever he wants, and he can do whatever he wants. That's how narcissists think. Now, so my coworker corrects her, and then she's still a little miffed at my coworker, and then she gets up and she goes back around the pool table and back onto her little seat next to me on the left. And then my coworker finally delivers the last blow to the game, and she beats him and she lays a road down, and he goes, "Oh man, I lost." Shoots. And so he has a smile on his face, even though I can tell that he's a little bit agitated or angry that he lost the game. Okay, and he backs up. And he's very animated and over the top in his reaction that he lost. Which is, again, very typical of a narcissist. Okay, but he doesn't, it's not like he's yelling or anything in terms of being belligerent or violent with my coworker because he got beat by the game. Okay, what happens is, within a few minutes, I don't remember how it was, but they started cleaning up, and he starts to begin to horseplay with his little sister. And what he does is, the little girl turns her head to look at him, because she's sitting next to him on the chair. She turns her head to look at him, and then he takes his hand, the whole hand, he spreads the fingers, and then he puts it on the side of her face, and then he shoves her face or her whole head down onto the pool table. Okay, and it's not like a violent push down exactly. Okay, it's a very slow, deliberate push down, and it's kind of like horseplay. And I think it was supposed to be interpreted as if, oh no, I'm just doing horseplay with my sister, But really, the way that it kind of bothered me at the time, and I didn't really process it until later on. That really what he was doing was he was dominating her. Okay, it was an act of domination. His forcing his hand against the side of her face down to the pool table, and she didn't put up any resistance. Okay, that bothered me. It's not like, hey, cut it out, kind of thing. No, none of that. She went along with it. And, he held her down for about a few seconds, maybe 5 seconds or so, and then he let her go. Now, it wasn't like, he was literally slapping her around or anything. Again, it was really, in my opinion, kind of like chest pounding, meaning that, hey, she's my sister and I can do whatever I want to her, type of a thing. Okay? He can do whatever he wants. Okay? He was frustrated, so he took it out on his sister because he couldn't take it out on my coworker and he couldn't take it out on me. Okay? We're the big girls. And so it was really well calculated on his part, even though he's a 16-year-old. But what bothered me the most was that the little girl did not put up any resistance. She defended him. She stuck up for him. I mean, what kind of a cowardly big brother, says, hey, yeah, I need a little girl to defend me. You know what I mean? Meow. Come on. And I mean, it was just, again, typical of a narcissist. That cowardliness. Or to get somebody else to do your dirty work for you. Even if it's a little girl. And I would be really embarrassed. Maybe I come from a different generation, but it's really embarrassing. You get a little girl to stand up for you. Really? Anyways, so what happened was, I didn't say anything at the time because I had to process it from it takes time even though I saw these things, it was really, I had to kind of step back a little bit to process it. And they left, and then they put the games away and everything, and the day went by. And then, so the next day, or the next time I came in, I spoke to I stopped my supervisor and I said to him, he has a real sense of entitlement. And he said, my supervisor said, yeah, and we've been dealing with that for several years now. So he knows, okay, the guy has a sense of entitlement. And what happened was, then I continued on and I told him about what happened. Everything I described to you, I described to him. And I said, I'm concerned for the little girl, really. I'm not so much concerned about him because he's big already, And but I'm concerned for the little girl because if there's a time for intervention, it's when they're really young like that. And I told him, I flat out told my supervisor, I said, she's being groomed to be a victim. basically. I mean, she didn't put up any resistance whatsoever to the fact that he was shoving her head down on the table. And she's defending him. You know, I mean, when you defend your abuser, I mean, it's basically the Stockholm syndrome. You know what I'm saying? And she's a 5-year-old girl. A little 5-year-old girl. And she's already being conditioned to be a victim. Because, I mean, really and I kind of explained this to my supervisor. I said to him, it's not so much that he, I don't know if he would be abusing her at all, in terms of something more sinister or something more, like sexual abuse or something like that. I can't say that. But the conditioning of her to accept that type of abuse and to stand up for a man who would abuse her like that is dangerous. And I told her that. I told him that. And my supervisor. And, you think about it, her brother is supposed to be a role model for her as to how a man should treat her, even her father. And if they're treating her and expecting it, to where she says, well, she has to accept being abused or pushed around, and she's supposed to defend her man, there was a time when a man would defend a woman. What happened? And so I was just trying to point out to my supervisor that when the brother leaves, when he goes to college or whatever, when he's going to leave, because, assuming, that, they're not having some type of sexual relationship, hopefully not, that she's going to be looking for another abuser because she's been conditioned to make that her purpose. If you understand what I'm saying, through the formation of the Stockholm syndrome, meaning that she needs, as an abusive victim, she needs an abuser to justify being abused. She has to be a servant to an abuser, to a narcissist. She's being conditioned from a very early age, and I've seen this so many times. And in what it can come out to be is either she's going to end up being a borderline or she's going to end up being a codependent. It's all a setup. It's all a setup. Anyways, to make a long story short, what happened was I just said to my supervisor after I explained it all to him that I've seen this before, and this little girl is being conditioned to be a victim, and I'm calling it to your attention. And so he nodded. Okay, all right, thank you. Now, a couple of days later, he comes in, and I think my supervisor called him out on it, brought it up to him, and said, he probably told him, we don't push little girls' heads down on the pool table. That's kind of a violent act. We don't do that here. Okay. And that's really all that he can do in terms of he can only limit where they can do these kinds of behavior, and you can only call him out on the behavior. You can't really diagnose somebody and say, hey, you're a narcissist. No, because that's not our place to do that. But you do need to address the behavior. So what happened was, I'm assuming that he did that because when I came to work, maybe the second time after, I guess it took him a while to get to it, he couldn't stay in the same room with me. And he couldn't look me in the eye. He wasn't able to look me in the eye. He couldn't stay in the same room with me. And he was annoyed as heck that I was even there. Because I recognized him. I recognized the narcissist. And I called it out. So anyways, that's today's episode, and I will see you on another channel, on another episode. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.